Okay, it says it's recording. Do you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right, the dream team. Structural frame. Awesome. All right, so our first question is the analysis of the case of the McDonald's and Harvard, a structural odd couple. So, does anybody want to start?
Yeah, I will. So, in our books, when we read McDonald's and the structural odd couples, it talks about how McDonald's is kind of all in one. Like, if you go to one McDonald's, it'll be similar to every other McDonald's you go to. And then compared to Harvard, which is kind of like each professor is their own boss. Like, you might take Math 101 with Dr. Jones, and then take Math 101 with Dr. Smith, and there'll be two different classes because they kind of have their own reign on how they want to teach it and what they want to teach. Although, when I was thinking about this, like, if you go to McDonald's in India, it's definitely going to be different than McDonald's here because they can't serve beef. So,
yeah, I found that intriguing how it listed some countries there, and I was like,
yeah.
Oh, they did in the anti-beef ads that they can do in, was it France?
Oh, I haven't seen those.
Did you see that was really, I thought that was interesting, yeah. Because I think about going to McDonald's here, and you're right, it's the same mediocre
Yeah.
food, but
I did find it interesting, though, in here from Amazon and Zappos, because they're kind of more of a similar business, how different their takes were. Like, Amazon was more customer-based, where Zappos was customer-based, but they also cared about their employees, where I feel like in this reading that Amazon doesn't really care about their employees.
Yeah, I was surprised by that more than anything.
I was really surprised at that because I don't know, I think when I think of like innovative, caring companies, what comes to mind is like Disney, Amazon, you know, that, yeah, I felt like they were just like taskmasters when you read the description.
Yeah.
I think they have so much to get out in a certain amount of time that they're just focused on, okay, we got to do this instead of the employees. So it's $1 billion company, so I do get it, but gracious.
Yeah, more
Yeah,
like
it's
they're
terrible.
Yeah,
Right.
they're concerned with what lines? What's that called? Like product lines?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But and they want you to go to their website. But I have to say, I love being able, you know, at 2:00 in the morning, if I want to, I can go order whatever that'll be at my house within a day or 2 days.
I know. It's
Yeah,
the best thing ever. They do have great customer service. I've lost things. I don't know if they've just blown off my porch, but they are all about, like, we'll replace it or we'll give you your money back. Like, what do you want to do? And then it's like replaced or money is back like that.
Right. I had the same issue.
But have you ever talked to a person at Amazon?
Not on the phone.
I had to.
I had to.
An argument, but once I got to a manager, they were polite, but the first line person I talked to was very unfriendly. But it was a unique situation of one of those beds that expands when it comes out of the box, and they didn't understand how it shipped. So I think it was more of a misunderstanding really than like an unfriendly customer. So it's kind of hard to say. But management, once I got to them, they took care of it like within like 2 minutes, and so I had a good experience once I got to the right person.
How about you, Sharita?
Actually, I had to do a return, and it might have been my fault because I had 2 returns in the same box, and I had all the stuff in the one box, but they unwrapped one of them, and the other one, I think they just threw it in the trash, and they never saw it. So I called, and great customer service, and they actually refunded me just like that. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I guess this is why I love Amazon. Like, I'm ordering every week, so I have a problem.
Yeah, me too. I know. My boyfriend's like, you have a box show up every day. And I'm like, Not every day. That's
2 days, you just can't, like, I don't know. I just love it.
you find everything on there too.
Everything.
So their model is obviously working, for the customer as well as they seem to have it down.
Right.
So what are our general, sense of McDonald's? You can pretty much go into any McDonald's with a few variations if you're in different countries, but if you're in the United States, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, it was very true what they said. Like, the items don't even really vary. Like, there's no regional anything going on. It's very just, here's your burger, here's your fries, you're done.
If you go to McDonald's in the South and then you go to McDonald's in the North, like the South has biscuits, which has my heart. I love biscuits. But you go up North, they have English muffins. And you're like, oh, no, I don't, no. No, I don't want, and they don't have sweet tea.
Oh, yeah.
So
True.
I think they do, I guess, but probably because English muffins probably wouldn't sell here. So from like a standpoint, they probably have like the South region, Western region, Northern region, all that, where they substitute biscuits for English muffins.
And I wonder too, well, and this article did not really go into it, but I understand that McDonald's, like some are owned by the corporate and some are franchised.
Yeah, our McDonald's here is franchised.
Yeah.
And it's honestly the best McDonald's I've ever been to. I don't know if it's because, Nash County has an obesity problem anyway, but the food's always fresh. And the ice cream machine has never been broken.
That's a plus. Because half the time they're, I'm sorry, it's broken or it's down or something. Every time I go to
the cleaning cycle, and you're like, does it clean for years? I don't get it.
So which, in your opinion, which model is the better model, or are they both?
I think it can't be a one size fits all situation, because even the thing, we're comparing a fast food restaurant to like one of the top universities. I don't think one can work. I think it's very situational and depending on the field. Like, I think healthcare is probably a mix between the two of these. These are like two very extreme situations. Maybe that's not a great example I just said, but it's definitely, I don't think it's not a one size fits all for like a structural.
Yeah.
So with like Harvard, are other university, I'm trying to think, I went to a really small university for undergraduate. I get the state that Appalachian is not is decentralized as Harvard is. I'm
pretty sure I've taken the same class more than twice as an undergrad, but I can't say that the professors had like that much control. Like, they had control of what they wanted to teach, and they didn't standardize a test, obviously, but I feel like it was pretty rounded. If you took one class with one professor, the next class you took was pretty similar to it, although I don't know. Dana, you got your undergrad from App. Most of my classes, like if it was, you had to take accounting 1, you took accounting 2, I usually took it with the same professor just so I had the same teaching method. But I don't think
it was anything as extreme as the Harvard situation.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of universities like Harvard? Do y'all know?
No, I don't. I think it's weird that they only picked one university and they tried to compare it to McDonald's.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people know how universities are structured behind the scenes. So it's a weird example. Like, McDonald's, it's easy to follow that example, but I think the university example was kind of abstract.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that stuck out to me is that, each like area has their own like endowment, or they're responsible for their own funding. And I know that universities have like different sources of funding, but that it would be so siloed was.
Yeah. Kind of like, the art department has to come up with their, like, come up with their own funding compared to like the medical department. Like, obviously, if someone came up to me and was like, we're doing research on cancer and we're close to a cancer, cure, I'm going to put my money towards cancer, not your clay art sculpture. Not saying that that's just art. I like art, but I feel like cancer is bettering the community, or not cancer itself, but research on it. Also, in the book, when they were talking about McDonald's, they were saying how, how Harvard has such a lax on their professors, but you wouldn't want that at McDonald's because you don't want some like 15-year-old in the drive-thru making you their version of a, Big Mac. So.
Because, you're right. You've got a different customer base. You have a different employee base, different.
Yeah. I think in education, I would want something a little bit more custom tailored than what I would think of when I went to McDonald's.
Right. And, you've heard of the website, Rate My Professor.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess every campus or college has a similar structure to Harvard to an extent, since if you go on there and look up like different professors for the same thing, you'll see one super hard and lots of homework and the other one's like super lax, we watch movies. So actually I've never saw super lax and watch movies, but if I had, I'd probably taken that class.
I'm glad this is true confessions.
Yeah.
All right. Are we, anything else that anybody wants to comment on the analysis of the McDonald's and Harvard article? So moving on to the second question, which is, has the structure of healthcare organizations changed since 1997, and is it changing now?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. It's I think with anything, if it doesn't evolve, it's not growing. So you always want to find better ways to do things. So I agree. It is changing.
I think in 1997, I wasn't, I didn't know anything about healthcare then, obviously. But I think just from hearing other people talk about my hospital, it was more physician-centered back then. Like, the physicians didn't like it. It wasn't going to work. Like, they had to say what, administration did what the physicians wanted, not the other way around. Where now it's more like administration's like, you know what, our patient satisfaction scores are down. Something needs to change, not, oh, it's the patient's fault. Not that they would say that. Some would say that. Not all of them.
Well, it's also a change, Dr. Lane was saying, last night, and just the landscape too. If you look at the 35,000 foot view with the changes in reimbursement and
costs
and actually looking at metrics to see how we're doing and how we can work together. One of the other things that I thought about was you're starting to see, or you see so much more stuff done that's not exactly in the hospital, but at your outpatient clinics, you see more and more of those popping up because we don't want folks in the hospital. I don't know what it.
I think just like the reporting structure in general has changed a lot. Like, I think Melody said, like, it used to be so physician based, and now people are directors of areas that are not physicians. It's a lot of nurses who are directors over areas, and I think it's just kind of moved away and kind of flattened, but also lengthened the reporting structure of how people report within the system, if we're talking like structurally that way.
And technology and education has came a long way too since then. So, as we're not paper based anymore, although that's a lie. We have so much paper, but we're supposed to be electronic, and let's see what else. You see a lot more smaller hospitals now being engulfed by bigger hospitals as well. There's not as many standalone.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Even just like a medical practice, like
Yeah.
I live in Durham and I refuse to go to a UNC or a Duke clinic, and trying to find a doctor that's not affiliated. There's like 2 left in the area, and it's super hard to find.
Yeah, I think we have one practice that, I mean, it's in the hospital, but they pay rent and it's their practice.
Yeah.
It's not the hospital's.
I know, like my for me, my pediatrician is not affiliated with Duke or UNC, but like all of my doctors are affiliated with Duke or Wake Med.
Yeah, I forget you live over here. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a change.
And
like mom and pop doctors' offices.
But and I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, because you think about the smaller offices. Yeah, there's something I think to the personalization, but that's running your own business. You have to be an expert in running your own business as well as the practice of medicine, or have the resources to be able to hire those. I know see dog.
Yeah, sorry. She's a 90-pound lap dog.
Oh.
But that, they don't have to worry about electronic health records. Like my doctor still uses paper records. She absolutely hates electronic records, and I feel like she'd retire before she'd have to use them. So, although that's kind of a pain for me, I can't go online and get my medical record, but
well, I appreciate being able to request prescription refills or whatever, and that automatically sent to my pharmacy, and just the red tape that seems to but as a patient, just thinking about an experience like with UNC where the billing system wasn't connected to the to the actual doctor's office, and you're getting like bills from here and there, and even the office told me, well, don't pay the bill if you get it online, only if you get it in the mail. I'm like,
yeah, that sounds about right.
That's really efficient, because how would I know that? Because our systems don't talk. Same system. Okay. Yeah.
That's why I won't go there. I work there, but I won't go there.
So anything else about the structure of healthcare and how it's changed?
I think we can just summarize that we definitely think it has changed a lot since then.
There we go. And then 3 is, what are the structural tensions and the potential organizational structures for healthcare delivery in the future?
I think where you said it was going to be more outpatient centered, I definitely see that.
Continue.
I mean, I see that now,
Oh, yeah.
I think there'll be more communication between organizations as well, because you can't not have it now. You have to.
Right.
Yeah, you have to have it.
And what about tensions? I think, Melanie, you also, when you see the big hospitals buying up the little hospitals, or we're talking about like this major merger now with UNC and Carolinas. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, that puts a lot of people out of a job, and then, certain physicians or healthcare providers in general, not just physicians, they may not like what UNC's policies are towards X, Y, and Z, and so they might leave for another organization. And, like, we're affiliated with Novant, but we aren't owned by Novant or partnered with Novant. Mm-hmm. The only person that's an employee is our CEO. But, when Novant had all those layoffs, that was something that came down to our hospital. No one had layoffs, but, people were worried, Novant's having all these layoffs. Like, what does that mean for us? It didn't mean anything, but, I can see why someone would think it could. Also, Novant will lay off all these people in one organization and then have people to hire in another one, which that would be horrible to have to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, not wanting to be bought out by those big organizations would cause tension, but there's a lot. I think there was a hospital, Allegheny, or that went bankrupt just not too long ago because they don't have the funds to stay open. I think Wake Forest was looking into buying them.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think like tailgate, like segueing off of that too, with like the larger hospitals going out of business and stuff. I think the costs are higher, obviously, to operate these. And I like out in Colorado, they have a lot of freestanding emergency departments now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like becoming a trend in a lot of places to help kind of like the ambulatory, centers. I think the standalone EDs are going to become more prevalent in the future too, because it's cheaper just to operate that standing alone, and a patient can go to like a surgery center than having it all housed under one massive cost.
yeah.
So then how does that, are we, as long as the technology is there, I can see the benefit. But, I guess the fear that I have is, if things are so fragmented and I can just go here and go there, like where is my medical home, to use like one of the
Right.
What about, although I know Colorado doesn't have the opioid problem the rest of the country does, but what about drug seekers? Are these EDs talking? Are they communicating? Is there a database for these patients that are coming in with the back pain or the chronic pain?
Right. I think they all kind of belong like to a UNC like system. I think
okay, so
they're not like completely independent. Like they're a part of a healthcare system. So I'm sure they have Epic or something that communicates
right
across
or
the board.
like,
yeah.
Mountain City, which is in Tennessee. You don't know where it's at. You blink, you'll miss it. But it's part of Mountain State Alliance. But it's just an emergency department. That's all it is. There's nothing else to it. But Mountain Alliance has Johnson City Medical Center and I think a couple other huge hospital systems that I guess they would transfer to if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you would think too, if there's these, that are, easier to operate, or that for rural facilities that don't have, the ability to have the larger hospitals, you may be meeting a need. Then you also get into recruitment and, all that good stuff. Huh. Sharita?
I was going to say, when we were talking about little hospitals being bought out by bigger hospitals, I think sometimes it's a good thing, because if they're not bought out, then what happens to that hospital? There was one near the east coast of North Carolina, eastern North Carolina.
Yeah.
Reasons. I was like, are they going to close the whole hospital? But I think if a bigger hospital like Duke or UNC would have bought them out, maybe they'd still be here. So
was that Moorhead?
I think it was. I'm in Nash County. So,
Yeah.
I think it was Moorhead. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember our CEO telling us that.
Yeah. And I just feel sorry for the employees, all these people without a job. So,
yeah.
It's sad. But we hear a lot of that. This company bought out this company. I'm like, well, what are they doing? But sometimes it makes sense financially. So
our hospital would have closed had it not been for Novant coming in with their management. I think we were 2 or 3 months from closing. This is before I worked there. And, when the current CEO came in, she could have laid people off, or she could have got rid of benefits, which is what happened. There's no more 401k. There's a 403b, but not a 401k. You can't accrue, numerous amounts of vacation time. You have to take them. And it's great that she didn't have to lay people off, but at the same time, it's like, I get 5 vacation days a year that aren't holidays. And like, so if I get the flu, there goes my whole vacation time.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Ugh.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You
Right.
know, I think she did the right thing. Laying people off is horrible. You know, I'd rather have a
Right.
paycheck than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you know, it makes me want to venture out to other organizations that have better
Right.
benefits.
Right.
All right. Well, shall we move on to number 4?
Okay. Oh, excuse me.
All right. Discuss how teams are used today in healthcare and how will teams be used in the future.
I see a lot of.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dana.
You go ahead.
So I see a lot of teams when it comes to improvement, like quality improvement things.
That's where I was going. Yep.
And
Quality improvement is a team sport.
God, yeah, it is. And then, you know, nursing teams, you know, there's your nurse leader and then your clinical leader, I guess that's an appropriate term. Yeah. And I don't think they consider themselves a team, but they have to be because they've got to work together, you know. They have their patients, but, you know, they got to know what's going on with everyone else's patients as well.
Yeah, I think the future of healthcare will be more team-based going forward. I think the book mentioned it somewhere, like Beth Israel, back in like the 70s, how they started with the team approach, and it was such a big concept. But I think nowadays, like reading that last night when I was reading it, I was like, that doesn't sound like anything innovative because there's just so many teams doing so many things now. But yeah, I think that they're really apparent in quality improvement, and there's teams within teams that I see and subcommittees within that, and you could just go on and on and on. But I think there's just going to be so many more in the future.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like there's too many people in a team and like you got too many hands in the pot. You just can't get anything done.
Yeah, you just sit around and talk about what you're going to do on your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well, you actually do it.
Done.
There's such an art, I think, to forming a team. You know, as I mentioned before we started, you know, my group is doing a lean event this week. We're doing value stream mapping, taking a process, and this is, I think, probably the 5th or the 6th event I've done over the last few years. And we were commenting today how we actually had the right people in the room, and it's been, you know, wildly successful. That is so important, that you have the right folks on your team, and that folks to develop the communication and the trust and the you know, so that, you know, when you're talking about a quality improvement team, you know, in a hospital, so that, you know, the nurse or the, you know, front desk staff, you know, will actually say something and feel empowered, and that it's okay to point out an error or mistake or suggestion, or
it's not being attacked. It's, you know, it's helping.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's like any sports team. If you have the right players, they might not communicate correctly and your team will suck, but you've got the right, you know, communication, teamwork. You know, he might not be the best catcher, but, you know, he knows that pitcher better than anyone. So your team will succeed. So, yeah.
So, like in your own workplaces, do you guys work in a team-based environment, or?
Yeah. Well, right now we're getting ready for the Joint Commissions, so
Yeah.
there's many, many, many teams right now.
Yeah.
Too many hands in the pot, really, but you know, we're all together. I get involved in stuff with HR, even though I'm medical staff services, just because we share a lot of the same things, you know, licenses, CPR cards, all that. So, and they can do the same back. I get their CVs and social security cards, and it can be helpful. And when it works so well. And when it doesn't, it's just a headache.
I get that.
We kind of work collectively as a group where I'm at. There are, of course, I think in some groups there are slackers that just, do their own thing. But I think as a group we do well. So that's important because you're all there to do the same come and go, but everybody's different. Everybody's personality is different. So even in one class I took many, many moons ago when I didn't know what I wanted to do, we were in this group and we just never had a meeting. We never did anything. So I was like, okay, well, let me just do this project by myself. And I went to the instructor. In a situation like that, sometimes you have to take lead and just get what you need done. Because not everybody's there for the team. So I think just like you said, Christy, about having the right people on the team is so important. So I think it's just more productive.
Wow. And I go back and forth because, I'm definitely, I'm in the Board of Pediatrics, so in a more administrative, organization. And we tend to do everything in teams. And, as a supervisor, it takes longer when you're trying to get, my team, using the teach back, moments of, well, I'm not just answering questions, but, well, how would you handle that? And how would, and that's how we, change processes and improve things, but it takes a long time.
Right.
So, and actually one thing, we're talking about teams, and then maybe we'll move on, is a focus that we've had here in the quality improvement projects that we're seeing physicians do is including the patient or the parent, the family, as part of a quality improvement team.
That's a big thing at UNC. We have a patient-centered care committee and a lot of different things like that. We're focusing more on patient perspectives and bringing them in for actual meetings and hearing what they have to say as part of the group.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the ladies on my team, she actually had a child that died of hyperplastic left heart at UNC about 7 years ago, and she helped found the patient advisory group.
Oh,
and she actually goes to UNC now, to their Quality Improvement Institute, and teaches residents about engaging parents and families. So she won a national award last month, along with UNC, for that patient, family, and hospital partnership. It was like a Patient Voices Award, and I was like, wow, I get to see folks that take something that happened that was so horrible and turn that into, a good thing.
A good end result. Yeah, a good end result. That's awesome.
It just gives you hope that our world is not such a bad place.
right.
Yeah.
So I just had to share that.
We had something similar. We have a chemo unit, and it's relatively new, but before we had it, we brought cancer patients in to ask them, what would you like to see in a chemo center? Like, what don't you like at your current one, and what could we do to make that better? And we have nurses that go out to get people's blood work and vitals instead of having them to have to come in, which I know from personal experience, it's a world of difference. I don't have to drive a patient 30 minutes away or longer. It's either Winston or Boone to get chemo. And, I can't imagine going through chemo and then having to get in the car and go up 16 or 421.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a very positive approach, I think, that we're seeing in trends in healthcare. And so now we're on to 5. What are the determinants of successful teamwork? Well, I think we've already touched on some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So, communication, right team members.
Right. Same common goal.
Same common goal.
Yep.
We missing anything?
What did you say?
Are we missing anything?
Understanding everyone's role.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to read what I typed up.
And that you have a leader. I mean, somebody needs to, you may not, I'm the final authority, but have somebody to facilitate or to guide the team.
Right, that's important.
And another thing, and I guess it depends, like if you're on a special project or if you're on, like just in your normal workday, having buy-in for what you might have a common goal, but just buy-in from the team about, and I think that includes like trust, and I guess it's all back to communication.
Yeah, I think communication underlines everything.
Everything.
And everything in life. Not just teams.
That is true.
Well, I think that's probably the end of the Dream Team's first video. So let me stop recording.